Welcome to Strength Series with Jay. This show is about one thing, getting you strong. So join me as I lead you through 12 progressive workouts that will have you overcoming the impossible in no time. Welcome back to Strength Series. Today we have an awesome workout for you. We're going to be doing Turkish get-ups for the first time, and we're going to be doing ring chin-ups. So Val is going to set up for the Turkish get-up right away here. And when you're doing this at home as part of your program, you're going to set a 5-minute timer, and it's just going to be practice. So while I coach Val, we're going to do it unweighted, but you have the option to use kettlebells or not. So again, we're going to start the timer now. You're going to pretend this is 5 minutes, and Val's going to go through each of the stages of the Turkish get-up. So we'll go stage 1, and what we're going to do is on each stage when you're practicing this at home, I want you to feel what bad position is and good position. So what Val's going to do is sag into this shoulder, and then she's going to post up and get into good position. Another thing you can do in each one of these is make sure you feel like your hand is centered right over your body here, and that your neck should be relaxed and able to look at both hands. So this is going to show her that she's stable through her shoulders and not getting into her neck. So this is step 1. Then she moves on to step 2, posting to her hand. Again, she's going to go into a bad position. So roll your shoulder forward, the other way, bad, 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 yeah. And then good position, she's going to open up, double check her neck. Good, so this is 2. Part 3 is called a high bridge. What Val's going to do is put pressure on both heels, push through the ground. If you remember that mobility drill we did in an earlier episode, that's where this comes handy. Squeeze her bum tight, make sure this is locked in, and then we move on to 4. So she's going to sweep her knee under, and I'm going to stop here for just a second. And what you want to make sure here is that this knee is stacked directly under your hip. If you have it anywhere else, you're going to be supporting yourself with your torso, which is not really the objective right now. And then moving on to the next one, we're going to sit into that hip, come all the way up. We're 2 away from the top. Then Val is going to sweep her leg out and lunge into the top position. So that's a lot. It's 7 in total. So we're going to go through it again, phase or step by step as we go down. So you take a big step, lower yourself. Now this is where people get confused. Val is going to, again, sweep her foot out, because you can stay there for a sec, because if you remember that windmill we did earlier, this is where we do a windmill and get into that hip. So she needs to open up this hip to be able to move that way. So what we're going to do is shoot her hip to her heel, put her hand down, perfect. Take a quick check, make sure her hips are stacked over that knee. Load on this hand is stacked right over that hand. And now she's going to kick through into a high bridge. Hold for a second and move from the hips to come down. Now sometimes what happens here is you can see Val's hands a bit close. You can move this in between so that you can get that shoulder back, open your chest up. Now without falling, control your way down to your elbow, control your way down all the way. So that's the Turkish get-up. Like I said, there's 7 steps. You're going to go 1, 2, 3 through it, and eventually what you want to do is be nice and fluid from one station to the next. And the object is to be very stable through the shoulder while it's free to move, and for this bottom hand and bottom shoulder to feel really stable without moving. So yeah, that's why it's practice. It's 5 minutes. You can play around with either side. You can play loaded or unloaded, and in the future we're going to load it. So what we're going to do now is move to our ring chin-ups like promised, and then kettlebell presses. Okay, now that you finish your Turkish get-up, we're going to get into it. We're going to do ring chin-ups for the very first time. So Sarah's going to demo this first ring chin-up, and she'll be palms forward to start, finishing palms towards her. So now, for this first chin-up, actually I'm just going to let Sarah go ahead. She's going to do 2 reps. So when you're at home, you're going to do 1 to 2 reps here, and you're going to follow that with a kettlebell press. Perfect. And relax. So just a quick note before I coach this. If for some reason you cannot get your first chin-up despite having practiced before and doing all your negatives, you have 2 options right now. You can use very, very light assistance, so you can tie off a band if it's near a bar, or you can have someone help you just a little bit, and then that help should not alter how you do a chin-up, and it should not be progressive, just like a consistent 5 pounds. That's option 1. Option 2 is you can actually load your negatives. So if you remember from the previous chin-ups, we just do nothing but the negative portion or the going down portion. You can add 5 to 10 pounds maybe, go through that same cycle again, and either one of those options should help you get your first ring chin-up. So just to coach you on the movement now, if you turn around and face the other way. Two things to remember as you're doing this is the first movement, you don't have to do the full chin up, but the first movement is going to be to pull with your back. So if she's starting with a dead hang, she's going to pull with her back first, get her shoulders down. Now go into just a completely dead hang and relax. Good, and then you can come off the rings. So the idea is just to recruit your back and make sure you don't think of pulling the rings in towards you. So think of that as number one. And number two, if you sit up again, we're going to do the full chin up, we'll go that way. I want you to think of driving your elbows down and back. And what that does is if you're driving them down and trying to elbow behind you, it's going to use your back a lot more and you won't think again of pulling those rings in towards you. So if Sarah does just one chin up like that, start with your back and then try to elbow down really hard and elbow back as hard as you can. Stick for a second. Perfect. And relax. Good. So you'll do 1 to 2 of those, depending how many you can do. And then in between each one, you're just going to rest as you need to, and then you're going to do a kettlebell press in between. So Sarah's going to grab this with both hands. We're not going to go over the kettlebell clean right now. That's a little bit more intermediate and advanced, but she's just going to bring it into the rack position however's comfortable. And then if you remember, her wrist is not bent, everything is nice and straight, belly's tight, grip is tight, bum is tight. It's like she's in a plank, and she's just going to do 2 presses. Nice. And then press again. And at this moment, weight should be stacked in a nice straight line, not out ahead of her. Then she's going to actively pull that kettlebell back down and then grab with both hands and park to the ground. And then other side. So in between sides, you're not going to really rest. You'll just do one to the other. Good job. Good. So again, you're going to do 6 rounds back and forth. You're going to rest as you need to, only do the ring chin-ups when you feel fresh. It's better to go and get all 6 rounds. I would start with singles, and once you can do all 6 rounds of 2 reps, then you can move on to the next one. So that's it. Congrats on your first ring chin-up, and then we're going to move on to swings. All right, now once you're done your chin-ups and your presses and all your strength stuff's out of the way, we're going to start doing some conditioning work. The swings have been used now for more power, but now you're going to use it for power endurance. So what Val's going to do is set up to swing. I'm not going to coach the swing too much because we did that in the previous episode, but she's going to do 20 swings or less, and she's going to stop again when she feels that power diminish. So she's going to take you through what the swing should look like, and I'm going to talk through it. But you can see Val's pretty neutral through her spine, maybe bending her knees a bit too much, so everyone's going to have a slightly different swing. So I'm going to say try stiffer leg as you're going. And then toes stay on the ground, good. And if flexibility allows, you can even drop your chest a little further as the kettlebell goes back. Good. So she's got that powerful exhale at the top, glutes, belly all contract at the top. She seems to be a nice straight line, so that's good. And once she's done her 20 swings, what you're going to do is you're going to do active recovery. So again, let's say you get to 18 and you feel a little bit of a power drop off. That's where you want to stop because you're trying to do power endurance. You don't want to just do the endurance aspect. So for this recovery period, it's active recovery. So Val's just going to kind of hang out, but what you're going to do is you're either going to do a light jog, light skipping, you could do shadow boxing, jumping jacks, but it's something where your heart rate is still going to go down over the course of a minute. So when you're first starting this, you might not be able to do a jog. You'd have to be a good runner, so let's say jog around, but you can just relax, shake loose, take deep breaths. What I want you to do eventually, though, is to start being able to either run again, skip, and then bring up that tempo so that your resting active recovery becomes more active as time goes on. So we'll pretend Val just took a minute break. She was, let's say, jogging around the block. She sets up again, and neutral spine right into the swings. Good. And this will be a good test if your active recovery was perhaps too hard for you. If you come back into this and you just don't have those same snappy swings, then you pushed it too hard. It's really hard for runners or cyclists to not run really hard and bike really hard. But again, you're trying to find that new baseline of activity where you can still breathe, still recover. Nice, Val. One example I like to use is, let's say, a soccer player. So if you have an opportunity for a goal, you have to give it everything you can because you don't score very often. But if you don't score, you can't just lay on the field and relax. You need some sort of baseline level you can work yourself back into. Just to recap, the first 5 minutes are all about practice. You're trying to perfect your Turkish get-up. We're going to load it in the future, or you can load it if you feel it's good. The chin-ups and the presses are going to be very low rep. You rest as you need Just think of high quality, and then the same thing is going to apply to these swings. So very snappy, very high quality swings, and then just active recovery in between, not trying to drain yourself. Just moving and still taking your breath, taking your time before you go to the next one. Again, that's 12 minutes. As time goes on, your active recovery will come up. Your swings might come up as well, but 20 at the most. And yeah, so make sure that you perfect these movements, and then they'll really pay off next week. Thanks for joining us.